All screen jump. There you go. Cool. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Jonny Huxtable. I'm one of the co-founders of Linkpool. I've been working on top of Chainlink since 2017, and I've been working for and helping out on the Chainlink team since late 2018 as well. So just to give a quick brief, I know like the blurb is like a tech demo, which I will be getting to. But just for the people who don't really know about Linkpool, I'm going to give like a brief introduction, keep it short and sweet. We are a third-party Chainlink focused company. We started out looking at staking pools for the Chainlink network. Quickly realised the obvious gaps in that there wasn't really an ecosystem yet because the project was, quickly starting out. So over time we've built tools and just sort of helped and developed products for the Chainlink network, and we are of course a node operator as well. So quick timeline with some fancy animations. In 2017, we identified the need really for a proper company to start up and people with actual operations experience to run Chainlink nodes. You can talk about a decentralized network of oracles all you want, but if the oracles are actually crap and they go down all the time, then you're not really going to have a network. So after that, we was conceived shortly after the Chainlink ICO. Me and the other co-founder met really in the discussion groups in Chainlink, and then built a business relationship there. Therefore going forward, and now we are a team what's quite rapidly expanding as well. So from this time when it was mostly a bedroom project to where we are now it's been quite exciting, and it's been quite a ride, to be honest. In 2018, we looked at a small crowd sale. So at that time, I was still working full time in my normal day job, and then we did a small seed funding round, which allowed me essentially to start working full time on the project and start building everything up. And later that year, after I went full time, a lot of the effort really of 2018 was building out all the ops, building out all the infrastructure, making sure we was resilient, highly available. We had the best full nodes in the business. We set everything up from scratch really to be a full-blown independent node operator who runs everything themselves and does it to the best quality they can do. Later in 2018 is when we actually released our testnet staking product. So it used the actual contracts that we'd be using on mainnet for Chainlink staking. And we released that to the wild, and people could just go on and stake a couple of hundred Link, and we mocked like rewards and stuff, and people could actually see that working end to end, and it's pretty well received and still running to this day. And after that, we've released like 3 products. So there's like a public Ethereum endpoint that we've been running for a good while. We also released like a Chainlink adapter framework, what's built in Go, so anyone can sort of go in and write their own like modules to interact with Chainlink. Super simple. They don't have to build everything up from scratch. And then when Chainlink went live on mainnet, we was luckily one of the first few independent node operators that was live, so we was one of the first 3, which is a really good achievement. And then later this year, if people aren't familiar with it, we released a marketplace for Chainlink. I like to think of it as sort of a search engine, so people can list their oracles or their jobs, the data sources, the adapters, and the idea is to link the content creators, the people who are providing all the data, who run the nodes, and then the end users, so they can go in and find everything they need to build their contracts up. The marketplace is one of our main offerings, and we're always sort of working on it, and there's a large update in the pipeline at the minute. And now Chainlink is being picked up more by projects like Charlie was on about earlier. We're actually, helping to secure some of the funds locked up in DeFi apps. So going from like an early bedroom project in 2017 to now saying we'd helped secure over 100 million in assets locked up is pretty crazy, but great nevertheless. So I'll skip over these quickly as I've touched on them. So the staking pool is really the flagship offering. It's non-custodial, it's all smart contract based. You never actually hand over the ownership of your tokens, they are yours. You can prove ownerships. And we are looking to obviously release that when staking goes live in the Chainlink protocol. Node as a service, so this is leveraging the infrastructure that we built. People can essentially subscribe and purchase their own node in crypto. So rather than setting up your own and worrying about the operation day to day, you can just leverage us and use the infrastructure that we've already built. There's managed nodes as well. So these are really for the larger clients. They are fully managed nodes. We run them day to day. We'll set up all the jobs. We'll manage the data sources, what they connect to. They're essentially like a carbon copy of our actual mainnet nodes as Linkpool. And then is the consultancy as well. So we will help any teams or projects or businesses looking to use smart contracts. That will be from full end-to-end of the process, coming up with ideas, inception, proof of concepts, actual engineering. We're hiring and fleshing out a team, and we're getting some really good Solidity developers and people who are familiar with blockchain. So, the capability of what we can actually do is starting to increase. And as I mentioned before, the Chainlink market. So the actual URL for that, if you've not seen it before, is just market.link. So pretty good domain for that, and you can just go on and see all the nodes and sort of how many jobs they've run, like the history of all the data they've provided to different contracts. And yeah, like I said, we're always working on that. So at the minute on the market, we've got 107 nodes, 25 adapters, and 686 jobs. So if you think in terms of like a decentralized Oracle network, there's 107 oracles currently listed on the marketplace. If you're a contract creator, then you can go on, see what data sources those oracles provide, pick from any of them, build your contract, and off you go. It's completely open. We've done it in a way so we don't actually manage it. It's very hands-off. It's very much self-listing. We give everyone the power to list everything themselves, and we do not like to have any sort of administrative function. So there's statistics on there as well, node performance. We have a couple of badges at the minute, so you can see like certain items, like security-related items for nodes, like job activity, and very much more soon. Where one of the biggest features we're looking at in the pipeline is actually supporting and displaying the Chainlink feeds themselves, which is pretty exciting because it turns the marketplace into not from just a marketplace to actually more of a block explorer. So it'll discover like new Chainlink contracts that'll pop up. You can see which nodes are listed on there, the jobs they use, the last answer of the contract. So more of like an Etherscan-esque sort of functionality. And just some screenshots of that, just to visualize it if you're not familiar. So like that's our node, list of jobs. You can see how much they cost in terms of the link token, how many runs we've done. So we're coming up to the 100K mark. That's how many times we've actually pulled data in for the different contracts. And then it's like the badges as well. So it's like officially reviewed and like verified as well, so it's like key-based support, so you can sort of provide identity proofs of who the node's actually run by, and then it's the listing there as well, so you can see the top node operators on the network. Hoping it weren't me then.
5 minutes left.
5 minutes? I was just going to say, oh, bloody hell, I'm not going to get my demo done in that time. Yeah, stake.link as well. So if you browse that, it's sort of our staking app at the minute. It's not live on mainnet, obviously. It's live on Rockston, and you can give it a little play. We don't maintain it that much at the minute. We're sort of prepping for quite a large update to that soon, which will be exciting. I'm looking forward to getting that out. We've talked a lot before about how like our staking contracts have changed, and we're developing like third-party pools, so every node operator can become like a Chainlink pool, and really much like trying to bolster the staking around the ecosystem. It's very easy to use. It's mobile responsive, focus on UX. So in the future, it can be easy as just logging onto your mobile phone with your MetaMask wallet and just like staking some tokens. And the contracts will be open source, so when the app goes live and staking's live, we will send out the contracts to the world so everyone can audit them. We will be getting audits ourselves, obviously, but then everyone can sort of pick them up, modify them to their own use, or deploy their own version. So very much giving back to, and that's a screenshot. So it's like the stake section on the left, where you can see like how much you've got staked and the capacity of the node, and then sort of like graphs for how much you've got staked, and then like how much link you're making as well from that. So this app is just a front to the Ethereum blockchain, so it actually pulls all the data rather from like a typical back end what you'd build. It pulls it all from the Ethereum blockchain, so it's fully trustless, and you can then verify this, the data what's shown here in the multiple places to make sure it's actually right, and we're not doing anything funny. Managed nodes is something that we'll be looking at doing in the near future. Again, it's smart contracts will power it. We'll be using like a subscription-based smart contract where you deposit crypto in, and it runs on like a subscription model where it deducts balance at a specific time period based on like how often you want to pay. NAS provides the node infrastructure. Like I said, it's a mirror copy of our own node, and we handle day-to-day operations for managed nodes, but not the node as a service offering. It's worth saying as well that it won't just be Linkpool who will be able to offer node as a service. So if there's any node operators in this room, it will all be modular again, so you can build your own interfaces which will hook into us and then manage the subscriptions, and then other people can offer their nodes and do the same as what we're doing essentially. And consulting as well. So if you're ever interested in consulting or speaking to us as a team, you can just get in touch with us at contact at linkpool.io. Like I said, everything from smart contract development to POCs, source data providers, build out adapters, and audits, support services, and anything else really. We're a team with a wide variety of skill sets, and we put his hands into a lot of different pies in the ecosystem. So we'd really like to think we can help anyone on whatever their end goal is. And like I've said, with us expanding, I'm just doing this and going on. We are looking for full stack developers, ops engineers, Golang and Solidity developers, and more. If you think you've got a skill set which would be good, please get in touch with us. We are looking to expand the team. I find it quite exciting, and really can't wait to get a real smart set of people around us and grow this to bigger than what it is now. Any questions before I start the demo on the slides?
Yeah, just talk me through a business proposition. So imagine I had
I got information feed for the LIBOR rate, right? So the Bank of England rate, right? And I secured 3 or 4 feeds. Could I come to you and you could help me build a kind of Chainlink module, you know, to feed that into a smart contract for some sort of financial instrument? So you'll do that piece, is that correct?
Yep, we can do that. Yep.
And the commercials then, I'm just interested the node as a service, because I'm thinking I potentially might have ISVs that want to do this, but they will, from a legal perspective, need to be contractually arrangement with the customer, right? So not necessarily you, but you could certainly underpin it. So you would take actually a back seat maybe, and they could outsource that kind of management to you. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we, it really depends on what you need. So we can take a back seat on the management of the node if it's for an enterprise. We can, you know, hand over access so you can manage it yourself. We can do it day to day. It really just depends on what the end user wants. For different clients before, we've done audits of nodes rather than just like actually setting up the infrastructure.
Okay.
So yeah, it really depends on the needs. We like to.
Are you looking to develop your own data feeds, or do you have enough to kind of bootstrap your business, or would you actually look to?
We're not looking at building our own feeds at the minute.
Yeah.
We've certainly looked at before providing adapters to support different feeds, but with how the ecosystem is at the minute, it's for us it makes sense more to provide access to feeds when people ask for them. So like when projects like Synthetics have come live, we've said, right, we'll need access to gold, silver, this pair, and then we'll work with the team and get access to all the APIs, and then there's a lot of, at the minute at least, there's a lot of manual orchestration between all the node operators to make sure they use like different data sources, they're configured properly, and everything's sort of tested before then the feed goes live. So at the minute it's still like quite a lot of hands-on work with actually bringing feeds live, but then that'll change in the future as well when the protocol develops a bit more. So the power will sort of shift from the node operators to then the end users of Chainlink who sort of can request whatever they want. So like if you was providing API access, for example, rather than the node operator, you know, having their own subscription, you might be able to supply the credentials securely, which then the node operators can't snoop on to give access to the API, for example, if that makes sense. I answered your question? Good.
You talk more
after. Sure.
Thanks for that, Jonny. That was very informative. You mentioned the staking as a big update in the development of staking. Do you have a timeline on that, or is that kind of top secret as well?
Nothing on the Chainlink side. Nothing that I can say at least. So one thing I used to touch on before, like when I did the talk, is we are moving to like, rather than just our own pools, to being able to provide staking pools for every node operator who wants to. So a lot of the work that we've been doing recently is that actual support in the contracts and then building that up in the app as well. So in the near future, we're looking to sort of redeploy the app and with the pool support, and then you'll see that that work come more to fruition. So it's not just for Chainlink staking as well. You can build staking pool contracts for, it could be for any network or any application. It could be a DAO or just even like an index fund or just liquidity pools as well, for example. So hopefully we're just gonna look at showing that off more in the future.
Near future.
Yeah, near future. It's it's not linked up with the staking work on the Chainlink side, but yeah, near future.
Is there plans for a smartphone application?
Oh, what? Sorry.
A smartphone application.
Oh yeah. So we've talked about this before. The front end and the apps we do are definitely built within in mind to actually provide native applications. We're not going to do it in the near future, but I definitely won't rule it out. It's something I'm very interested in doing, at least for like staking and what we offer. Yep.
How are you measuring the performance for the end user?
Of the end user, the person requesting that node. So if you buy a node for us, you will get monitoring and stats as part of that node. But in terms of the end user, we won't be looking to provide statistics to the end user from us specifically. So I think that point delves onto the areas like reputation providers, where there'll be other third-party providers. A team who are doing this at the minute is a team called SDL, who are based in Australia, and they're building like a reputation system which will give scores to all the oracles, which will then give stats to the end users. There's also like the Chainlink Explorer as well, which is an official tool built by them to go in and sort of view what a node's doing and whether it responded in time, and then it's like the feed UI as well, which Charlie showed a bit earlier, which visualizes all the nodes. There's no like hard metrics from that, but if you're watching it, you can see who responds first and sort of how, you know, if a node's down, for example. But they'll definitely be like integrated on the market as well, like ways for end users to see who are the best nodes, essentially.
Is there any risk for staking at all?
Like touched on earlier, you know, if the smart contracts had a vulnerability, then there's potential loss of funds there. So obviously we're reaching out to we've spent like the past year reaching out to good auditing teams to be able to actually audit our contracts and do the legwork to make sure they're secure, and then once they go live, then everyone will publish them reports, and then everyone will be able to view like the audit reports and make their own decision. You know, a lot of the time end users of like DeFi apps will sort of wait a grace period of a couple of months to make sure everything is okay before they'll, you know, before they'll put any money into it. But as seen with like some of the recent issues with like flash loans, where people are essentially gaming different DeFi apps, there's, you know, there's always new vulnerabilities being found all the time. But these contracts have been in developed since 2017, and we're essentially taking a lot of steps to make sure they're rock solid. They've already gone through a round of audits already. Cool. Right, I'll go on to demo, so I've not got long left. So the demo I'm doing is a Chainlink. It's a very basic example of a Chainlink contract. For anyone who's watched some of like the walkthroughs and tech demos before, you might be familiar with it. In true Alice and Bob theme, it's a contract called Alice and Bob, and it is a SEO agreement between Alice and Bob. And basically, Bob is going to do the work to make Alice's website high up on Google. And if Alice's website does reach like under the 10 spot in Google, so you know if it's quite high up on the first page, then Bob will get paid. And the settlement of this contract will be based in euros rather than Ethereum. So it'll pay in Ethereum, but it'll be paid to euros. So for the more technically minded, at least, I'll just briefly show how this works. So in this smart contract, it's all kicked off to begin with this function called check site listing. It's pretty basic, so you can see like in Chainlink style, you create a Chainlink request, you add a URL that you want to call. So when this contract fires, it will speak to all the different Chainlink nodes, tell them to pull that URL. They'll pull that URL, parse the data, and then return that back to the contract. And once that fires, it will then, the Chainlink nodes will, can you see my mouse? Yeah. The Chainlink nodes will call this function for full ranking. So all the nodes will return back on chain, call this function, and you can see if the ranking is under 10, then it will request the Ethereum price. The request Ethereum price will make another Chainlink request to call the price to Ethereum to euro. And then at the end, it calculates the transfer amount, so it gets the conversion rate between Ethereum and euro, works out how much Ethereum it is, and then transfers Bob the money if the contract's got the balance, and then self-destructs. So I'll be going through an end-to-end process of deploying the contract and then running it through. and then you'll see the payment get made at the end. You know, if you was doing this on mainnet for real, so this is very basic, it only uses our Linkpool node. You know, if you were doing this on mainnet, you'd probably ask for a good handful of nodes. It could be 8, 10, 12, 14, you know, how many you feel comfortable with. You probably wouldn't use this API as well to request the euro price. So on mainnet at the minute there is feeds, so you could actually calculate from the live price feeds what Chainlink supports on mainnet, and then do it that way. So let me just, that's a bit tiny. You see? Yeah. So I'm going to run a command which is then going to deploy this contract. So I'm doing this in real time. For anyone who's ever watched live tech demos before what use Ropsten, you know, they often go sometimes wrong. Ropsten just stops, it likes to stop producing blocks sometimes for 30 minutes and there's nothing you can do about it. So hopefully that's not the case here. But what this is doing, it uses an Ethereum developer framework called Truffle. Truffle's pretty easy to use. It's a nice little framework, and then it's just deploying the contract. So you can see there, it's starting what it calls a migration, and a migration is contract deployment. And then you can see it's deploying Alice and Bob. And just wait here, depending on how Ropsten's behaving. This could take from a couple of minutes to a few seconds. So it's just, you need to, oh yeah, it's still producing blocks, we're good. So you'll just see that finish when it's done. So this is actually deploying, you know, I'm using the Ethereum testnets at the minute in real time. This is actually deploying the contract. It's speaking to our own Ethereum full nodes that we run, rather than using something like Infura, and actually, you know, deploying the contract. And the code for the contract is what I just showed you. Hopefully it'll be in the next block. So all I'm waiting for here is the transaction that I've just submitted to be included in a block. Come on, Ropsten. I've run through this like 6 times, so if this doesn't work, it will work eventually, it's just when. Any more questions while I'm here?
Are you hashed that transaction into a block that we're waiting on? Or is it
Yeah, I'm just waiting for a miner to pick it up.
Okay,
yeah,
and then put it into, okay.
Yeah, don't wait for any comms when I'm deploying on Truffle.
In this case, are you simulating the ranks as well?
Yeah, so I'll show you actually. So that paste bin, so this example actually, it's worth mentioning that we have a repo on GitHub just under the Linkpool organisation called example Chainlinks. There's a few contracts in there, from calling like different price feeds to speaking to like Wolfram Alpha's API to Rapid API. And I've pushed up this example to there, so you can, you know, log here and check it out. You can see the commit I made a couple of days ago. And the pastebin URL, what's in the contract, points to here. So it's just a mocked out API for like SEO ranking. You know, in real life, again, you'd point to different like providers who offer APIs for like Google search rankings, and then you'd get a multiple of them and then query them and make sure and do some consensus and make sure that the results right. Is that good?
I've got a random question.
Yep.
If you see the way you had the contract, but it was all technical.
Yep.
How do you go from I've got a contract, as in me and him want to make a contract, the same contract as that, as in plain English? How does it go from plain English to that technical?
There's a couple of teams who are working on something like this. So is the OpenLaw project and is like the DAML guys as well, and they're providing like a like markup languages to make sort of like typical sort of PDF or like paper documents which describes a contract. and then that can translate into the actual, you know, the
The
lower
technical
level
part.
code and the stuff to provide that. So in the future, you know, it'll be like with these teams who are building this, you'll be able to just go to a marketplace and be like, I want this contract, put in these details, and click submit, and it'll just deploy it. And you know, it could be like a mortgage contract or like an SEO contract, or yeah. So
But right now you need to employ somebody technical
yeah,
to do it.
yeah,
But you
it's
can get Ricardian contracts, which is what you're speaking.
yeah,
Ricardian are executable,
Yeah.
and you can hand it to a judge, so it's kind of natural language.
yeah.
So you can get those now, which is what open law.
It's pretty cool stuff. So it's like they provide like OpenLaw especially provide like a visual builder, whereas like drag and drop elements in a nice interface. So you'll build it all out, but then you know in the background there's actually lower level code. So it's deployed the contract. I can see it's got a contract address. Anyone who's familiar with Ethereum will recognise these things. I paid 10 gwei for it. It's used 1.3 million gas. I've still got 3.48 ETH. So what I'll do is just show you this contract. So you can see here, anyone who's used Etherscan before, I'm just showing you literally the contract being made. That's the transaction from 2 minutes ago. With me actually deploying the contract. And when this is finished, I could jump the gun, but I'm not going to. Any more questions?
Finished.
Oh, it's finished. Wait, there we go. So this is a script I've written, and the script basically just interacts with the contract. So it's simulating Alice and Bob actually entering this agreement and you know, the contract fully executing end to end. So I'll just run this. This might take a while again. Blocks are being a bit slow, so might take a little while, but you'll see it sort of progressing on screen. For anyone who's not familiar, when it pops up at least, you know, when people like us run nodes for every request of external data, so if you ask us to get the price of Ethereum to euro, then you need to pay us Link to do so. So that's the incentive model there for us to run nodes. So
How often would, say, a contract like this run, like so to check whether you've hit the top 10? And if so, do you have to charge every time? Like so every time you check, so...
yeah, so it's really a case by case basis. Like you could set this up on a cron if you wanted to, where it'll run like every 6 hours, or for example, you could do it based on like a manual request. Like you say,
it's something like stock, so something that's constantly changing. If you wanted to kind of keep it up to date.
Oh right, yes, like a price feed, for example, where so. One of the latest developments, what's going on the Chainlink side, is something called the flux monitor, and it'll cause the off-chain oracle to monitor the data sources off-chain, and then if it notices like a certain amount of deviation on the data, then it'll write it back on chain. So you'll say, I've got a Bitcoin to USD feed, and if that fluctuates by 0.5%, then write me the price again on chain. And you'll use like many APIs to be able to find the aggregate to understand the deviation to then write it back. So stuff like that it's possible. It's sort of inactive development, but it's nearly ready. Is that yeah, it's been slow. It's got like another 2 transactions after this, but it's alright, it's working. So yeah, because there's 2 requests in this contract, I'm requesting the Google search ranking and the price of Ethereum to euros. I've just, I'm sending 2 Link because it's costing me 2 Link. Depending on how the node operator's price, what they're offering, is how much it is. So like for example on Linkpool, all of the mainnet jobs that we offer are 0.1 Link per request, and that's sort of like the common standard at the minute between the node operators. It's just like a number what was set and then just sort of kept there. Oh my god! I knew this would happen. When I ran this before when we sat down, it only took like 2 minutes.
You should have recorded a video.
Yeah. Well, I like seeing it in real time. I mean, I've got the one I did earlier sort of thing in case it failed. But I'll just wait. Any more questions as well? While I'm here? No? Yeah?
So how do you test these small contracts? I guess getting the lights really important. So is there a testing process that you go through?
Yeah. So one good thing with Ethereum, it has really good developer tools. So you can essentially run, like, are you familiar with Ethereum yourself? Like,
No, but I do test through development.
Oh, right. So you can essentially run a local version of the Ethereum blockchain, which is like super fast, and it'll just like transactions will ping through like instantly. So what you do is just write like typical unit tests, which then test the low-level functions of the code, and then you could do like end-to-end integration tests as well. Build them out in JavaScript, which sort of hook everything together and make sure all the happy paths and stuff work. And then you can take it a step further as well, and then do like automated UI testing with your app. So like on our staking app, we have an automated test suite using Cypress, which actually goes through and clicks all the buttons, and then you make sure it works. So that's done. So you can see it's sent Link to pay for the request. It's deposited 1 ETH into the SEO contract. That's Alice's deposit if Bob does his job. And then it's starting to request the site ranking. And then if I go to the contract address, you'll see the transactions. So that's when I created it. That's when I deposited 1 ETH, and that's when I made the request for the site ranking. And then if I just view the internal transactions, so this will, for anyone who's not familiar, this will just look like gobbledygook and won't make any sense. So that's when I made the request to actually get the site ranking. The one above that is when our Linkpool node is replying back to the contract with the site ranking. So I'd actually be able to show you that if I go in the transaction. So the bottom hex string there is the actual response. So you can see it's the number 5, which means it's the 5th ranked. And then, so after that, it's then requesting again for the Ethereum to euro price. Then the node's replying back, and then the actual transaction happens. So because the site, I've mocked it, so the site's in ranking, the contract's fulfilled, so it's transferred 0.29701 Ethereum to Alice, to Bob, sorry, and then returned the remainder back to Alice. So if I just quickly grab that and then show you the rate. There you go. Obviously volatility, and quite volatile today.
You could do that in DAI or USD, could you as well?
Yeah, you could just transfer it in
Okay.
DAI or whatever, like stablecoin. I did want to sort of take this a step further and actually hook in like a payments integration solution, but unfortunately I've been a tough couple of weeks recently, just been busy, so I've not had a chance. But then you could take this a step further and actually make like a PayPal deposit or send the Ethereum to Coinbase and then do a swap. Take it a step further.
So if you're talking like serious money, like hundreds of thousands.
Yep.
So you obviously don't want to use PayPal for that.
Yep.
Could you use like open banking to take money from one account and deposit into
Yep.
another account?
I mean, if you are approved, the issue, the funny part with that as a node operator is, you've sort of got to jump through all the regulatory hoops to be able to, hook in and get approval from the banks to be able to act as a third party to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, for example, like I've looked at the open banking specification, and it's just a REST API, Chainlink. You can write adapters to interact with those APIs like super simply. So it's well within scope of what
So
is
you don't
possible.
Need, so you're not stuck around Ethereum or anything like that. You could actually just do bank-to-bank
Yeah,
transfer.
yeah. You know, if you're cleared and you've got access to do all that, then you know you can finish off your contract by essentially making a bank transfer. Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. So, yeah, that's the end of the tech demo at least. Any more questions based on that? Yeah.
That was really good, by the way. Although,
Oh, thank you.
Just on that, I know that was quite a simple example you used. Say that we were talking about property transactions from a construction sector. If that's a public sector contract with a main principal contractor, are you seeing a real level of complexity, or is it a simple, when this milestone happens, send us this notification trigger to these? So I think it was Kate said earlier on, like cautious with the code. Rather than try and have it to dot every single I and cross every T, would your experience say try and just pick out some of the, let's call it, game-changing events?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like the like you said, game-changing events to actually move the money or do like final settlement for things.
So does that get to the level of detail where, so for example, there you're saying you've created a contract and you've made fifth on Google or whatever. Does that then in real time send appropriate notifications to each of those stakeholders to say whatever the UI was, that they could log in and say success, you're there. So all of that can be embellished.
Yeah, exactly. So you know that's a very simple example, but you know the companies who are wanting to leverage this tech, they can build their back office solutions or systems to look at this data and then show it in a nice way. So you know the transactions happen, but they won't know it's just using blockchain to them. It's just another row in a column. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Good. Right. Thank you.